This weekend, New York City will play host to what is being billed as the largest climate march in history. And next week, the UN is holding a major climate summit. With the White House's announcement of new power plant regulations, there is now palpable momentum in the movement to limit carbon pollution. Conservatives, for their part, have been getting more sophisticated in the way they fight against that movement, spending a lot less time denying the science, which gets harder and harder in the face of overwhelming scientific consensus on man-made global warming. We just had the warmest August ever, also the warmest May ever, and spending more time questioning the motives of the climate change movement. The argument is that this whole thing isn't really about carbon. It's about the left trying to seize power, get rid of free enterprise, and push socialism on the American people.
Global warming is socialism by the back door.
The fact of the matter is, global warming, David, is simply socialism in drag. Socialism doesn't work, so you bring it back in green of environmentalism.
That's what global warming is. It's merely a platform to advance communism. That's all it is.
Now, in a very provocative and I might say excellent new book, one of the left's most celebrated and influential authors across the world, Omie Kline, says, yeah, that's right. Kline says conservative fears about what climate change means for the global economy are well-founded. She argues the only way to actually fix the problem is to completely revolutionize the way we do everything, including global market capitalism. And Omie Kline joins me now. Thank you for being here.
Good to be with you.
The book is excellent and it is provocative, and your chapter title is "The Right is Right." So you know, it's television, so I had to sell it a little hard. But you have this.
I mean, it's not true that it's some sort of conspiracy designed to smuggle in,
right.
You know, socialism and just using, you know, climate change as a cover. The fact is, if we're going to respond to this crisis, we need to break a whole bunch of the free market rules that these guys hold very dear. We need to regulate. We need to get in the way of the fossil fuel companies who have made it clear that they are willing to dig up 5 times more carbon than our atmosphere can absorb and still stay below catastrophic warming. We need to invest heavily in the public sphere. We need to do that to protect ourselves from storms like Sandy, but also to lower our emissions so we don't have more and more such extreme storms. Now, I admit that I think that's good news. I think it'll create jobs. I think it'll create more livable cities. I think we'll have cleaner air. I think we'll have stronger communities if we respond to this crisis seriously. But I can understand why, from a hardcore free market conservative perspective, if you live at the Cato Institute and the American Enterprise Institute, this would feel like the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. It's the end of their world.
What do you say to people that say, okay, well, Omie Kline, you have these politics and these ideological priors, right? You wrote a best-selling book, No Logo, that was very skeptical of the sort of global neoliberal capitalism. You wrote this book, The Shot Doctrine, it's an amazing book, a sort of history of this era in global capitalism. So you already sort of believe this stuff, and then you see global warming, and you think, oh, well, this is a useful tool for my ideological priors.
Well, I certainly already knew that there were problems with capitalism, that there were problems with deregulated capitalism. And it is true that the same logic that lowers wages, that creates this global race to the bottom, that slashes social safety nets, that's willing to sacrifice people on the altar of economic growth and profit, is also, by the way, willing to sacrifice the stability of the support systems on which all of life depends. That's just an extension of the same logic. That's not saying, you know, okay, you wanted this, so now you think this. It's actually part of the same story. It's the same logic that values basically nothing but profit. That's what this system is built to do. So you have all kinds of enlightened billionaires who say, we have to do something about this. You know, you've got a Michael Bloomberg or a Richard Branson or a T. Boone Pickens. You know, I talk in the book about this parade of billionaire saviors that we've seen over the years, but they always come up short. You know, Michael Bloomberg's billions of dollars are invested in oil and gas. Richard Branson, while he's been trying to save the world, has increased his fossil fuel emissions by 40% by going on an airline buying spree. So there is, and I don't argue that this is because these guys are hypocrites and evil. I think it's because they're locked within a system that tells them that they have to keep increasing their profits for their shareholders and pursuing growth and expansion. And that is why, you know, the subtitle of the book is Capitalism versus the Climate, because we've got a clash.
when you talk about sort of unlimited growth and the kind of ideology around growth and the fact that things are dependent on growth, right? A business could be making 50% profit this year, but if it's going to make less profit next year, even if it's going to be profitable, it's going to have a hard time in capital markets, right? And so there's a sense that like Taco Bell's always got to sell more food, so they like invent a fourth meal, and everyone's always got to sell more. There was an era of conversation around this in the 1970s, around the Club of Growth and sort of limits to growth. Yeah. And there was a feeling that those people were wrong and proven to be wrong because they were predicting all kinds of things that didn't necessarily come through, mass starvation, for instance. What do you think the lessons are from that fight in the 1970s about this battle over whether we can have eternal growth or not?
Well, I think that where the environmental movement has gone wrong in the past is making these scarcity-based arguments that we're going to run out of resources and we're all going to starve, or we're going to run out of fuel, right? You know, we're running out of petroleum. The problem that we actually face is it's not that we're hitting peak oil, it's that we have too much fossil fuels. It's that they keep finding new reserves, they keep finding new ways to get it out of the ground. So yeah, these scarcity-based arguments, a lot of them have been proven wrong. That's not the argument I make in the book. The problem, one thing that the Limits of Growth authors got right is they warned that we were going to overburden the Earth's natural sinks with pollution. And on this is absolutely right. Where we're hitting the limit is what our oceans can absorb. We're seeing rapid acidification, and what our atmosphere can absorb. So they got it right on pollution. They got it wrong on the scarcity questions, and that's the real problem. This won't just happen naturally. We won't just run out of fossil fuels just in time to save ourselves. We actually need to deliberately get off the stuff.
And that becomes a question about, okay, well, how do you make that happen? Because the strongest argument I hear from people, frankly, sadly, when I'm arguing with people, and I've had these arguments, I was talking to someone from coal country who says, it's not, oh, global warming isn't happening. They'll say, yeah, it's happening. It's, well, if we do something, China's just going to admit it, and then India's going to just admit it, and like, this is a big problem, and it's like you're in an airplane with a no smoking section, and you know, you don't smoke, but you're just getting everyone else to smoke, so what's anyone going to do?
This is the issue, is that the logic of competition within our countries and also between our countries is preventing us from responding collectively to what is genuinely a collective crisis. You know, I've hung around with the climate. The ultimate collective crisis. It forces us to work together. And I've gone to these climate change denier conferences. I've interviewed some of the leading climate change deniers, and this is the part that they hate the most. And this is when they say it's a communist plot. What they mean is that we can't respond to this without redistribution of wealth, because we have to help developing countries to leapfrog over fossil fuels. That requires transfers of technologies. That requires a justice-based approach. And to them, that's the end of the world. Like I said, it's not the end of the world. It's just the end of that highly individualistic, zero-sum game kind of thinking. And it is possible to do this. It just isn't possible to do this without having a real debate about what kind of values we want to govern our societies. And part of the problem I think we face is that we've got the whole discourse of the green movement for the past 20 years has been, okay, it's the opposite of what the climate change deniers claim. They've been desperately trying, a large part of the green movement have been desperately trying to reconcile this crisis with free market orthodoxy.
Life's going to be the same. It's just the thing you plug it into is going to be different, and everything's going to be the same. This is a really provocative book. It's an excellent book. I have lots of different thoughts. Maybe we'll just continue.